The Cloud Spinner by Michael Catchpool. There was once a boy who could weave cloth from the clouds. He had a spinning wheel and a loom on top of a hill. As the clouds passed with a whir of the wheel, he would spin them into thread, gold in the morning, with the rising sun, white in the afternoon, and crimson in the evening, just as his mother had taught him. Then, with a clickety-clack of his loom, he would weave the thread into cloth. As he worked, he sang a simple tune that his mother had taught him. Enough is enough, and not one thread more. The boy was wise. He spun just enough thread and wore just enough cloth to make 2 scarves. One of pure white he wore over his head when it was hot to protect him from the sun. The other he wore when it was cold. It was a twist and twirl of gold and white and crimson. Soft as a mouse's touch, warm as roasted chestnuts, his mother had taught him well. One chilly market day, the boy walked down the hill, a basket in his hand and his scarf around his neck. The market was full with great excitement. The king was on his way. Soon the king rode grandly by, hardly noticing the cries and cheers. But what his greedy eyes did notice was the wonderful scarf of gold and white and crimson. "Tell me, boy, where can I get a scarf of such fine cloth?" "Nowhere on earth," replied the boy. "Then how did you get yours?" snapped the king. "I made it," said the boy. "Then you'll make another one for me. A longer one, much longer, for I am the king." But the boy said it would not be wise to have a long scarf made from this cloth. "Your Majesty does not need it." "How dare you tell me what I need?" shouted the king. "I order you to make my scarf." So the boy went home to the top of the hill, and with a whir of the wheel he began to spin. He spun the clouds as they passed in the morning and were of gold with the rising sun. He spun in the afternoon as the clouds sailed by, white as snowdrifts. He spun in the evening where the clouds were crimson. With a clickety-clack of the loom, he wove the thread into a long, long scarf. The king was overjoyed. His scarf was soft as mouse's touch and warm as roasted chestnuts. "Now make me a cloak of this glorious cloth," he ordered, "and dresses galore for the queen and my daughter the princess." But the boy shook his head. "It would not be wise to have so many cloths made from this. Your Majesty does not need them." The king's face was a twist of scowls. "I want those clothes, and I order you to make them." So the boy went home to the top of the hill, and with a whirl of the wheel, he began to spin. He spun the clouds as they passed in the morning and were gold with the rising sun. He spun in the afternoon as the cloud sails past, white as snowdrifts. And spun in the evening when the clouds were crimson. He spun, and he got harder and harder, for soon there were fewer and fewer clouds. At last, with the clickety-clack of the loom, the boy began to weave the thread into cloth beneath a cloudless sky. As he worked, he sadly sang, "Enough is enough, and not one stitch more." The king was delighted. He put on a wonderful cloak, and the queen and the princess each put on beautiful flowing dresses. "Surely," he boasted, "there is no other king as magnificent and wise as me." "Not one," said the queen. The princess said nothing. But day after day, as they wore their marvelous clothes, not one drop of rain fell from the cloudless sky. "Your Majesty," pleaded the villagers, "our animals are thirsty and our crops are dying." "There's nothing I can do," shouted the king, walking this way and that, his cloak trailing behind him. "Why are you moaning to me?" The princess said nothing. But that evening, she quietly slipped out of the palace. She wore a simple dress, and in her arms was a bundle, soft as mouse's touch, warm as roasted chestnuts. She crossed the dry, dusty gardens and the brown fields beyond and climbed to the top of the hill. Stepping forward, she knocked on the boy's door. Is it too late to undo what has been done? The boy smiled and said shyly, there is still time. When the king awoke the next morning, he could not find his wonderful cloak. The queen could not find her beautiful dresses. They searched the palace for the clothes that they had made, but they were gone. While outside, the villagers danced for joy as rain began to fall from the sky. It rained and rained and rained. The king and the queen looked out and wondered. And the princess, with a smile as bright as rainbow, stood on top of the hill and sang, enough is enough, and not one stitch more. The end.